Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of HITSZN. My name is Erica Whitaker. I'm joined by the founder of HITZZN Media, Nick Henderson, and we're so excited to welcome you back to another episode. We have another great guest today, and we're just really excited to dive deep into hearing his thoughts about the cheer world.
Yeah, I'm excited about this episode.
I am too. Very excited.
We are currently on one of the mats at Cheer Extreme Raleigh, and what a great place to have a great person. This person has over 12 world's titles. He's got a billion summit titles as well. He's a very well-known choreographer in the all-star cheer space, and he was USASF Choreographer of the Year. I'd like to welcome from Eyes on You, Lewis.
Hello. How's everybody?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Thanks so much for spending some time with us.
No problem.
It's really exciting, especially to be here up at the mainland of Cheer Extreme Raleigh.
Right.
Grabbed you in town out of a busy schedule.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about Eyes on You.
So Eyes on You is my choreography company. Honestly, it should be Eyes on You Consulting as well, because like right now I'm just here mostly consulting, not even doing that much choreo. But Eyes on You Choreography started when I was 16 years old, and I was just obsessed with my middle name at the time. Like I was like, okay, I want to change my name. Like I want Isaiah to be first. So I took the I from Isaiah and then started the Eyes on You thing, and I just kind of went with it from there.
That's amazing. So did you come from a cheer background, or was it something that you just kind of picked up and you love the dance and the routine of it all?
So it wasn't really a cheer background. I honestly wish I started when I was like tiny age. Like I didn't even know All-Star Cheer existed until I was like 16 or 15. And then by 16, I was like, okay, I'm just gung-ho all for it. But I honestly just started in middle school. I saw kids tumbling, and I was like, and I didn't even call it tumbling. Then I just was like, oh, they could flip. I want to flip too. And so I went home and got like on my lawnmower in the back and started doing like backflips off of it in the backyard. And then from there, it was like I went from middle school cheer to high school cheerleading. I was terrible. We started taking tumbling classes, and I didn't know that was a thing because my coach was like, your tumbling's a little scary. Like we might actually want to like get some help for it. And I was like, oh, well, who's going to help me? So they signed me up for a tumbling class at a gym. At the time, it was called Spirit Cheer. And from there, I was like, this is a thing. Like people do this every day. And so they were like, yeah, like it's called All-Star Cheerleading. And I was like, okay, I mean, I want to do it. And I'm not thinking like this costs money, like my parents are gonna have to pay for this. I'm just thinking like I just get to come here
and do what I want to do.
And just do what I want to do. And then from there I was just obsessed. And so I just kept going from gym to gym to gym until I like found a happy place, because once I realized like, okay, these are the teams that people want to be on. Like I want to be on one of those teams, but I only had like 3 years to cheer. So I was like, okay, I need to just start moving around until I find a place that I absolutely love. And I ended up at Georgia All-Stars.
So let's dive into that, because that's something that us at HITSZN Media, we really pride ourselves on. It's something that we're really trying to break the stigma of gym hopping.
Right.
Even saying the words gym hopping, it feels like it has that negative connotation to it.
Right.
Talk about how your perspective of gym hopping and how it can be important for athletes.
So with the word gym hopping, like I hate that it has this like negative look, when in all honesty, there's a million reasons why you could sit there and gym hop. And with how much work and how much you have to come into these spaces and be around these people, like it needs to be like a happy place. It needs to be like a safe haven. And so for me, it was like nothing against the gym I was at that time, but I'm like, I don't feel like I'm going to be successful here. Like the person next to me, like they may find like this to be, okay, this is all I want to do. But for me, I was like, I feel like I see myself at a certain level, and I don't think I can get there at this particular gym. So I started gym hopping until I found like a place where I could be successful. And the first place that I found success, I wasn't happy. So like I'm gym hopping. I go to a team and like we're winning everything, but like practices are like intense. Like I'm nervous to come to the gym. And I was like, there has to be a different way around this. Like there's no way I can't be happy and still be successful at the same time without being scared to come to practice. And so finally I kept going, and that's when I found Georgia All-Stars, where it was like, actually a family environment, but we were still winning. And so that was like my biggest thing.
That's a fine line.
Right.
A lot of gyms are either family, we're here, and so on and so forth, but then the competitiveness takes kind of a back seat.
Right.
And then there's other gyms that the competitiveness is the forefront, and we could really not care about your feelings.
Right.
We are going to win, and we're going to win every time.
Right.
And finding that fine balance between the two I feel like is pretty difficult.
Right.
Absolutely. So, you're there, you found Georgia All-Stars, and what was the first big win, whether it was an actual, a World's a Summit team win, or was it more of like a personal win? What was your first big win that you were like, I'm home, this is it?
The first big win was actually Battle Under the Big Top. It was still Battle Under the Big Top. And I had been there, like all the gyms were local, so I usually go every year, and I had never won. And so I'm like, oh, this is a big deal. Like, we actually, not only did we win, like I remember walking out on stage and I'm like looking and I'm like, there's like 100 people here watching us. Like, what? And I had never had that experience before. I mean, I freaked out, and I actually think I dropped a stunt or almost did. But the next day I was better. I was
Got
way
the
more
jitters
prepared.
out, day two.
Because like I just walked out, and like I remember I couldn't like really see like the gym, like the kids in the gym. I just saw like all these other faces in different uniforms, and I'm like, okay, like why are they in the parent viewing section? And so like I'm freaking out. I forgot to do like the little rituals and handshakes and stuff because I'm over here just like looking like, okay, where are the coaches? Like I don't see anybody.
Am I on the right time?
Right. Like this is the wrong team. I'm like, do they know like this is Georgia? This is not one of their teams.
Yeah.
But when we won that, I was like, oh wow, like this is great. Like I actually had fun winning. It was hard work, but like I loved going to that gym and just like putting the work in, and like the coaches supported us every step of the way.
That's amazing.
So was that where you ended up is that where you ended your all-star career, was with Georgia?
With Georgia All-Stars. And then I ended up coaching there too.
Wow. So leading from an athlete to then a coach, how was that progression? Because I'm assuming you built a lot of rapport with a lot of those athletes that were younger than you, and then all of a sudden you went from, hey, I'm your teammate, or I'm a teammate of a team at your gym, to now I am an authoritative figure. How was that transition?
It was kind of hard because like even now, like when I come in and work with teams, everybody's like, I just feel like you like just play so much with the kids, but like they're having fun and they're getting stuff done. But I feel like, I don't know, like you can just relate to them so much better. And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, like I don't want anybody to feel like, oh, like we can't talk, we can't do anything, or like I want, like if you're cracking a joke, like I want to be in on the joke, like I want to know what's going on. So like I was the same way when I first started coaching, except I was like everybody's age, and then I was coaching at a gym on the South Side when I was still cheering at Georgia, the South Side of Atlanta, and some of those kids were like older than me. And they didn't really know it because of how I carried myself until one day they were like, well, when's your birthday? And they kind of did the math. And then one of the boys on the team was like, I'm not about to listen to you. You're not even, I'm older than you. But it just took time to like learn, like, okay, I can still have fun, but I still have to be strict. Like, even though these people are my age, like we're laughing at the same things, we do the same things. Like I still have to make sure like I maintain a balance so that we can actually get stuff done. And it took me like 2 or 3 years to learn that. But even in that process, like my teams always won. So it was hard to figure that part out. But I mean, after I figured it out, we became even more successful, like across the board, from like tinies all the way up to like senior co-ed.
So that brings up a good question of, it's much different to coach a tiny team all the way up to a senior co-ed team.
Right.
What is it like how do you connect with every child, no matter where they're at? There are some credible gyms out there that do younger teams very well. ATA Georgia comes to mind. That gold team looks incredible.
Right.
And there are some gyms that, have amazing world's teams. All kinds of teams out there. How do you connect with each child to make sure that they are really getting the full version of you?
So from being able to growing up coaching levels 1 through 5, well now 1 through 6 and 1 through 7, when I started, our gym was never like, oh, we have tons of level 6 kids or world's kids coming in. Like some of the gyms I was at, we only had like a youth 1, like that was our highest level. So being in those spaces, like I just had to learn how to relate to like a tiny or the youth kid or the kid that may, I don't know, have like a learning disability outside of cheerleading, and just trying to find different ways to do that. So I never had the most talented team or the most successful team. I always had to build my team and like figure out how to relate to somebody that either just had started cheering, only did football or something like that. So it kind of just made me learn over the years, like, okay, with a tiny team, I'm not going to sit there and expect them to be quiet and not talk the entire time. It's not going to happen.
Herding cats.
Right. Like, and honestly, some of them don't know. I mean, the majority of them aren't going to know left from right. Like, and I'm not just going to sit there and stand and scream. And so like, I try to like get down really low, like be eye level with them, tell them 100 times the same thing over and over. And my trick that I personally use is I'll record myself counting, but like saying all the keywords, like move 1, 2, 3, and then just play the voice recording over and over. So for tinies, it becomes
so
like
smart.
Saves your voice.
It
So
saves your voice. All the keywords are there, and they really don't know what they're doing, but they just kind of listen to it and do it like a count later. And so slowly but surely, it gets better. So that's my trick that I use with like tiny, mini. With youth, I'm always like, okay, I'll give you like a Starbucks gift card, youth and junior. And then for seniors, I usually have to like pull out actual money, which sucks sometimes, but it's worth it in the end. So yeah, so those are some of my like key tips depending on the age group.
So you talked about going through these building processes. You were never always, you didn't always be handed the teams that were just successful right out of the gate. You had to build that success.
Right.
How did you combat having a team of building, but maybe taking in an athlete that was used to nonstop success? How do you build a team to success with athletes that are used to success already?
It's honestly, it depends on like the athlete. So when you have an athlete that comes in that's so used to success and they're on a team that's kind of like trying to find that success, you really have to instill in them and get them to trust that, okay, like there's actually a method to this madness. Like it is going to work. And, you know, people always say like, trust the process, but it's hard to trust the process when the process hasn't given you any results.
Right.
So like if an athlete's coming to you, or especially like when more talented athletes would come to one of my teams and they're like, okay, I don't think we're going to be that good. They would get into practice and realize like, this is so structured. Like I'm exhausted and we're just working on the basics. Like, okay, this actually might be good because that practice was harder than I thought. And so I try to, especially like the first few days when it's like a newer athlete, I want them to like really understand like how structured my process is. And like, even though we only may fix one thing, like I want you to realize like, okay, well, I really did get better in that practice. And I feel like that's important. And a lot of athletes like can actually realize like, this guy knows what he's talking about, or this guy's just going to sit up here and yell at me all day.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to hear a little bit more about when you come in and you're coming into a gym or whether it's your own team, how do you structure those practices to make sure that you are really pulling out, whether it's starting with warm-ups and then getting into the nitty-gritty, or how do you structure those practices to make sure that you get the most out of every person?
So I always start a practice, like some gyms will just have a team come in and just stretch, like however you want to. For me, and this may be like an old school approach, I don't know, but like I feel like I need to be active in the stretching. Like I need to be paying attention. Like we need to be stretching in a formation. I need to be on the floor walking around, even if it's just like asking about your day, but making sure like you know that I'm engaged from the start of practice to the end of practice. I feel like sometimes where teams are just allowed to like click up and stretch however they want to, you have like the cliques forming, and then you see the friend groups, and then you have the kid that's left out, or you have the kid that's not even stretching really at all. Like,
probably my child.
So like I just feel like if you start practice on a note where the kids know that they have your attention and like you're really focused and like locked in, I feel like everybody just kind of locks in with you naturally.
Yeah, it's that engaging, that if they know that you're doing it,
right,
and that you're there for the whole process, they can see how important that whole process really is.
Right.
Okay, so you were coaching. When did you make the switch over to choreo? When did that come to fruition, and how?
So prior to going to Georgia All-Stars, when I was coaching at this gym called CAO, we had choreography, and it wasn't like we had a million kids. So like we really had to fundraise for choreography and all that stuff. And I didn't know about like researching choreographers. I didn't know anything. I just know like, okay, I'm running practice. The gym owner has somebody coming in, and here we go. So this person came in, and I didn't know like what I was supposed to do at choreography, like as a coach. So I'm just kind of just sitting there like, and he's just like, this look good. And I'm like, yeah, like, I'm not going to say no. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
looks great.
And then, yeah, like I love it. Like, yeah, let's all face the back for 28 counts. So like, we're doing it, and after he leaves, like we're going through the routine, and I'm like, I don't like this. Like, this is not like what I wouldn't want to compete this. So like, and I feel like the kids kind of feel the same way. So I'm like, okay, maybe I could just kind of like do it myself. And so I just started like watching videos. I mean, I was already stalking like YouTube and stuff. Like that's how I figured out like what stunt elements I should be working on. Like, well, if this team is doing it, I can do it harder. So I started like watching routines, and I'm like, okay, I feel like if I can just get everybody back to the stunt, like we may have something. Like it can't be that hard. Well, can't be that hard ended up being like maybe 2 or 3 weeks of me trying to do this routine. And I started over so many times.
Those poor kids.
Like we learned 100 versions of that routine, and like the kids were just so over it. Like, okay, well, which spot do you want me to go to? The first spot, the third spot, or like
right.
It was complete chaos. And finally, we figured it out-ish. Because when I go back and look at the routine, I'm like, God, what was I thinking? But we won with it. And then from there, I just started like having to choreograph the whole gym, because the gym owner was like, well, I like that way better than, you know, what we had. So if we need to have 3 weeks set aside for every team for you to do choreo, then let's do it. And
he's like, I just want one routine now.
At a time, a year. Like,
just one routine a year.
I would go home and make like 1 million notes, and like the minute one thing didn't happen, like I couldn't do anything else in the notes. So like I would get stuck on page 1 and I could never even make it to page 10.
That takes like upgrades to a whole new level.
A whole new level. And then from there, like we were so successful, and there was no D1, D2 split. So we're going against like all the big Atlanta gyms at the time. And like, we're killing it. Like we're winning everything. And so people were like, well, can you come do a routine for us? And so then I had to like figure out like how to relate to other people's kids, like, and like go to a gym and be able to like replicate something and not do it in 3 weeks, like figure it out on the spot. That took some time.
I can imagine.
Oh yeah, because I was so nervous.
And were you still coaching at CAO?
Yes, I was still coaching.
Yeah, so that dives into a whole other thing. Like, how do you create routines for other gyms, being a coach of a gym? Because you obviously want to set yourself up for success. Right. And some of those other gyms might be competitors.
Right. So when I was that age, I only knew like, okay, this is how we win. This is how we win. So you have to win like this too. Now, I clearly know that is not the case at all. And I just kind of like, whenever I first come in, I'll sit there and like watch a practice and like, no, like just go ahead and do your thing. Like, and the coach is always like, no, we'll do whatever you want to. And I'm like, no. I just want to see like what you guys do. And then I'll like attack some of the weaknesses. I'll change the structure a little bit. And then when it comes to choreo, I kind of like already know the kid just from watching them like either do their old routine. Like if I'm coming in to start a routine over and you already have a routine, I kind of want to see it. Like, because I can tell like which kid may be in a bad spot, or that kid is a great performer. She should be in the front, like, or she's going to be in the front of the new routine. So like, I'll sit back and observe. And sometimes it's like I'm giving you the death stare, but I'm really just like trying to like focus in on like, okay, which kid should I highlight more, or which kid maybe do I need to highlight less in a certain spot?
Yeah, and process that whole thing.
It sounds like you really played at the strengths of each individual team. Right. And that is so important when you're talking about a parent. You know, we both have children in the sport. And so, and just by coincidence, opposite, my daughter's a base back spot, his is a flyer. And so there's so many different strengths. And I love that you can connect and identify which thing is important and which is not.
Right.
So you are, you know, just starting out, you're getting your name out there. What was it like for the first time somebody said, I saw your routine and I loved it, I want you to come do that? What was that like?
I'm so like, I don't like getting compliments because I just feel like I'm doing my job. So like, you don't have to be like, oh my God, I love it. So the first time somebody told me that, and it was kind of like along the lines, like when I got nominated for like choreographer of the year, I was just like, okay, like what's the big deal? Like I really am just doing my job. So I'm like, I mean, thank you, I guess. Like, I don't know.
It's like going to McDonald's and getting a burger, and they're like, do you want to leave a tip?
And I'm like, you're just doing your job.
You did your job. I think you're going to get the paycheck.
Yeah, right. So that was my biggest thing. Like, I wasn't trying to, like, make it known that, like, I was the best out there. And I still don't say I'm the best. I was just like, I just like doing my job. And I like doing it for like the benefit of those athletes or the benefit of those programs. Like I just wanted to see that kid smile. So like I love that you love the routine, but I truly was just doing it the best I could for those group of athletes or that coach.
That's incredible to be able to stay so humble with the accolades that you have. I mean, gyms in itself, they win so many summit titles. They start winning world's titles. You get that clout. You get that kind of like, hey, like come to our gym. Like, we know what we're doing. We've got the banners to show it. Like, so how do you keep yourself so humble and so grounded through that success?
How I keep myself humble is I just know like success can come and go. And the hardest part about being success is not finding it, but keeping it. Like I tell teams, like the hardest part about like being a world champion, it's not getting the first world title, it's doing it again. I feel like doing it again is always harder than when you first did it. And so like I just keep telling myself that like I just live that every single day. Like, okay, I know this was great, but the very next year it could be bad. And like, for instance, I'll have like a routine be completely viral. Everybody's marking it. And then the very next year, everybody's like, I hate this routine. And I feel like I took the same approach. But this year it's different. So then I'm like, okay, you know what? Work harder. Like, again, success can come and go. So like I just really tell myself like I have to stay locked in at all times. Like I have to give 110% at all times.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And you're working with some of the best in the industry. Some of these world's athletes are just incredible, and they eat, sleep, breathe, live cheer.
Right.
How do you prevent, they're going so hard after, whether it's a globe, whether it's their next whatever it may be, how do you prevent that burnout from happening when they're chasing something they want so hard?
How I personally like try to prevent burnout is I try to like not emphasize or like harp on like what we're chasing or what we're doing. I try to just keep focusing on us. Like I just try to be like, okay, this is what your weakness is. Let's like try to work on that. Not this is your weakness. You're never going to win worlds because you can't do this. Like I just try to focus on what you need to do, not why we're doing this. Like I want you to have fun. At the end of the day, I still want you to go home and feel like you got better at something and not just focus on, oh God, we have to win Dallas. If we don't win Dallas, it's over. I want to quit. Like, because I feel like when you start putting like the emphasis on, we just have to win this, we just have to win that. When you don't win it, the athlete's like, okay, well, there went that. I don't want to do this anymore. Instead of, let's try to get a whip double by Worlds and then we can compete that. And it's just like, so even if we lost Worlds, like I competed my whip double for the first time at Worlds. Like I feel so accomplished. Even though we didn't win, I'll go into the season better than this one. And then maybe we can win. Instead of just saying, if you don't do a whip double, we're going to lose. Like, I feel like that kind of thing like really stresses a kid out. And then once they're stressed, they've gone through this whole season, they're miserable. The one thing that they're looking forward to, they lose. So then it's just like you just completely like kill the dream of the athlete instead of making the dream about like the journey of it. Like, okay, I got a whip double. I got this. I got so much better this season. Even though we lost again, like I feel like I'm going to be so much better going into next year.
It feels interesting that the way you said that when I'm listening, I'm hearing trust the process.
Right. You have to trust the process.
The process and the journey. And I can tell you as a parent, we hate that phrase.
Right.
Unless the process is really
actually
in our favor.
working, right?
And it's working.
Right.
Because, hearing trust the process when things aren't working, it's really hard to hear. And athletes are really hard to hear that. But hearing you say like, just focusing on the small pieces, right? Don't try to boil the ocean.
Right.
Just swim a little bit, a little bit. And when you get to the end of the shore, you look at the success that you've had.
Right.
And it just goes back to what you had said about it's not the first one that you win. It's can you keep winning them?
Right.
That's where all the hard working comes in.
Right.
Tell me about when you won you had your routine and you went to Worlds and competed it and it won. What did that feel like?
That honestly was amazing because Worlds took the longest for me to actually win. Like even as a coach, it took forever. And I was going like continuously and like not making finals. And I'm just like, I feel like I did everything right. Like, what am I doing wrong? And then I just kind of like, studied, or I flipped the way like I did choreo for like that particular team I was trying to have win. And I just started focusing on different things. And so when we stopped talking about like winning Worlds and stuff like that, everything just got better. Like, I don't know how to explain it because we were so focused on just like making ourselves better and not trying to just win this competition. We were just trying to like win over ourselves. Yeah. And finally, the minute like it clicked and we all won over ourselves, like each individual athlete, like it clicked for that person, we won Worlds. And it was kind of like hard for us to lose it again because we all figured out like, okay, this is the process. It works. It's a formula. And I kept that formula ever since. And knock on wood, I've had like 4 to 5 teams win worlds ever since then. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Does each win feel just as sweet as the first one?
Yeah, and some wins even feel like even I can't even describe it. Like some of them, for instance, when Prodigy Midnight won in medium co-ed, our fans were so divided. Like you had the fans that loved the look and the crazy blush, and then you had other people that absolutely despised the blush. And there were so many things that were said. Like people said, like if they're not going to let us win in that blush, and it was even a comment like if we do win, they're not going to take pictures of us in the blush and stuff like that. And so when they announced us in first place, I bawled in the middle of I was just on my knees bawling. And the person that was announcing awards, I think it was HITSZN, she came up to me and she's like, I've seen you cry, but I've never seen you cry like that. And I was like, because you just don't understand. Like, they said we weren't going to win because of blush, and we actually won. Like,
she's so sweet.
Yeah, she is. I love HITSZN. So that win meant a lot to me. It really did, because like even the kids, like some of the kids were like, you know what, we can win with the blush. And then some of the kids were like, maybe we should take it off. And so the fact that we did things our way and we won our way, it was just a very special moment for me.
That's incredible.
That's amazing. So we have a lot of kids that are listening to the podcast that are, in the middle of their all-star career and hoping to be a world's athlete one day.
Right.
That's kind of the pinnacle. What would you say to encourage them on their journey?
When it comes to like being a world's athlete, I feel like so many kids, or not even kids, like just the industry, like hearing the word worlds and athlete together, you automatically start thinking double fulls and tumbling. And number one, we have so many avenues to become a world's athlete, which I feel like is so great, because we did not have non-tumble in my time. Because if we did, I would have definitely been on non-tumble. I hated tumbling. But there's just so many different approaches to being like a world's athlete. Like you could be the best back spot. Honestly, there's some teams that have just somebody that's on the team because she's a great performer and she brings so much to the table of just performance. Like she may not be the best base, she may not be the best flyer, she may not be your last pass, but she just performs and you want to watch her. Like I could be on the team just to be a great main base. Like they know like I can do any stunt that you need me to, I can make it hit. So like your world's teams aren't like it's not made up of everybody tumbling. There's no way. Your most successful teams, everybody's not a tumbler. Like somebody has to be able to hold a stunt. And sometimes I can't hold a stunt. All I can do is tumble. So for those kids that feel like, oh, like I can't even do a back handspring, like I'll never make that team. Like you would be surprised like what being a good base, a good performer, a good jumper, like all those other things can easily get you on a world's team, especially in today's industry.
And that's something that we really talk about at HITSZN Media is glamorizing these other positions.
Right.
So of course I'm a father of a flyer, and when you watch routines, a lot of people go
the whole time, right?
And so it's glamorizing that. And we've talked about this ad nauseum on the podcast, but it's really good to hear things like jumping,
right?
And how there is a space for people who are proficient at jumping, because it's something that, we talk to our athletes about all the time is you're not going to be great at every single thing.
Correct.
You can't be a wonderful flyer, an amazing tumbler, a great jumper, great performer, a base,
right.
Like it's not that. You have to put the right people in the right places.
Right.
So it's really encouraging to hear, and I'm sure the kids are going to be really encouraged to hear that, hey, you know what? I'm a really great jumper, but I suck at tumbling. There's a space for me.
Right.
And it's inclusive in that way.
Right.
So that's pretty awesome.
I agree. So what is, you've had all these amazing accomplishments. What is like probably one of your number one that you would say, I look back at my career and if I stopped today, this is what I accomplished?
The number one moment for me, that's actually a really, really good question. It would be this gym, TAI. They are a D2 program. And at the time when I first met them, my friend was just like a coach there. Her name is Alex. And she was strictly just like the coach. She would come in, coach her teams, and she would go home. I mean, and we would talk about like her teams and stuff like that here and there. And then at one point, the owner of the gym was like, I think I just want to, stop doing this. And I had gotten close to Alex and I'm like, okay, so like where are these kids going to go? Like the gym is in the middle of nowhere. It's like in the middle of the mountain tops of Pennsylvania somewhere. Sorry, foothills. They always correct me and say foothills. And I had felt so bad for the kids and like I'd grown like so close to them. On top of that, when I first came in, the kids were like, the gym had never won Summit. And the very first year I came in, we go to the first award ceremony, we win, and we had to go right back behind stage, go right back on stage, and we won again. And so then after that, I'm like, we can't close. Like, because I remember one kid tapping me, like, as the streamers are coming out, and she's like, are we going to win again next year? And I'm like, just grab a streamer right now. We'll talk about it later. And so watching her, she ended up taking over the program. And now TAI is like a big deal. And it's insane to watch, like, because I'm like, I've known these kids since they were like tinies and youth. And so for me, like, watching like people like come up and want to take pictures with them having fans, them consistently winning. Now we have a world's team. When I first got there, I think the highest level we had was a junior 4. And now we have a tumbling world's team. Just watching that gym where it is today and watching like Alex take over it from being a coach to now an owner. And the whole time she was just like, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm like, yes, you can. I'm like, you're doing it now, honestly. Like, I mean, yeah, you're not taking care of the bills, but I'm like, you're still coaching all these teams by yourself. So like, there's no reason why you can't be the owner. Let's just get the right staff. And I kept supporting her through that. And so now the gym is like running so smoothly. The athletes there really never leave. Like, it's just, everybody loves it. We're successful. We win. And at one point, it was really just not going to happen and we were going to close. So that is just a huge deal to me. Like, every time I see that gym, every time I get to go back, it's like, wow, like, I can't believe we really built this.
One decision changed the trajectory probably of a ton of athletes.
Right.
And gave opportunities that they may have never seen, or they might have gone to another gym, not got the same opportunities.
Correct.
That's incredible. That's awesome to see how not only are you in the choreo world, but you're close to seeing the light and being able to see the benefit that these kids need, and especially in an area of the foothills, as you say.
Right.
I don't want to be in trouble. Is that they didn't have any other place to go.
Right.
And, you know, that's a big common thing that we've heard from some of the athletes. We interviewed a kid who goes to Navarro, and he was like, you know, in a place that I used to live, like, there was just no other really options. You know, you had one option. And it's good to hear that there's options, because going back to your original comment of finding your happy place, just because you go to one place doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be your forever home.
Right.
That's wild. So I see your travels. I think everybody sees your travels.
Yes,
and,
they do.
It needs to be a show, I've decided. So the minute you want to make that into a show, you let me know. We'll produce it. Tell us some of your favorite places you've been. You've gotten the opportunity to travel all over the world.
A lot of places. My favorite place is definitely Australia. If there's anybody watching this in Australia and you need choreo, please hit me up. It's just beautiful. Like, it really just looks like everything that I Googled before I got there, it looks exactly like that.
So it wasn't bait and switch.
Exactly. So like, it was just breathtaking. Now, the flight to get there was a pain, but just getting there and just like the weather, I mean, it's a little hot, but at the same time, like, every day was just so pretty. Like, every restaurant I feel like was on the shore of something. And it was just like unreal to actually like experience it and be like, I'm in Australia because of cheerleading.
That's amazing. So that brings up a good point. What's it like, the differences between like US, Australia, Canada, some of the other places that you've traveled around to? What is it like to kind of mitigate those differences and learn how to work through them?
So especially when places like, there's a team I used to work with in Puerto Rico, they really didn't know much English. So like, having to sit there and communicate a level 7 pyramid to somebody that doesn't speak English and I don't speak their language, that can be very difficult.
Well, it's
honestly.
a good thing you only had to learn Spanish up to the number 8.
And I still sucked at that too, honestly. But like in Australia, their challenges are a little bit different. So like I think it's when we are on our summer vacation or something like that. Or basically right before they go to Worlds, they're coming off their summer break. That's it. So like a lot of them, Worlds is their first competition. Now, I don't know about anybody else that's watching this, but I don't think you want Worlds to be the first time you just go out there in front of a group of people and try your routine. Especially if you just paid $1,000 to travel from Australia to Orlando to do it.
Man, that win would be so sweet.
Yeah, right. That's another breakdown win.
Guess what, parents? We're not going to any other comp. We're good.
We did it.
We're
The season's
done.
pretty good. And like,
That would be a nice season.
so like they start their season with Worlds and then they go throughout their season. So like doing a routine there, you have to kind of approach it like, I can't sit there and say, okay, this should work in a few weeks. Like everything has to work like in that moment, because as soon as I leave, they have to be able to run it and it has to work. So like just being that they are on that schedule and like we don't really adhere to help them out in the US to that schedule, like our competition schedule is just really based off the US. But like it's a world championship event and we really don't take into consideration the international teams in their schedule. Like we don't meet in the middle.
That's a
wild.
really good point.
Right.
Yeah, we've got an ambassador. So I don't know if you're familiar, but we've got 17 ambassadors now spread out across the country. And then we have one in Canada as well. And it's been really interesting to talk to her and her family and some of her peers about understanding the differences between Canadian cheer and the US cheer.
Right.
And do you have experience in Canada as well?
Yes, it's cold.
So she told me that the compete level in Canada is much less than it is here in the United States. That sometimes they have trouble when they come to the United States because the compete level is so high.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that?
So especially in Canada, at least the teams I've worked with in Canada, it's not like I would go into a program where it's, say, for instance, Cheer Extreme Raleigh. I walk into a level 3 team and everybody can do a round up against Spring Tucker. The majority of the team can. In Canada or in other places too, like also in like London and stuff like that, for some reason there's like a tumbling gap. That's at least what I call it. And it's where they do have a few of these powerhouse tumblers, but here in the States, we'll have a whole team of the powerhouse tumblers and they may have one or two, and then maybe half the team doesn't have the tumbling skill. So, and the international score sheet has done pretty well at being able to like be more inclusive about that. Like they allow toe backs to count because they realize like in other parts of the world, a whole team may not have a standing full. They may be one, there may be none. So like the fact that they're able to like actually include a toe back and stuff like that helps. But at the same time, still, when you come over here and you are going against that team of standing fulls, yes, your toe back may have helped you over there, but it's not really doing much over here because, again, like our level is just so high. And it's like right when we think like, okay, there's nothing else I can get harder than this, then we started adding rewinds into stunts. Like everything just keeps getting harder and evolving so quickly in the US. It's insane.
What do you think contributes to the level of compete in the United States based off of everywhere else? Like what do you think is setting that apart?
The fact that like even our colleges and universities, like their level is getting harder. So then it's like kids that are wanting to explore going to college and cheering like at a competitive college, then they start working on harder skills while they're still at the all-star age. And that's kind of how I feel like rewind started coming into play, because a few years ago, we would have never imagined a free flipping stunt going unless it was level 7. And so now I feel like it's becoming so normal because like in college now they're doing full twisting up to like 2 high structures. And a few years ago, you would have never saw that openly. Like now every team is doing like full twisting rewinds. And that is insane to me, like in pyramids. At least looking back, it was insane. Now it's just like, oh, okay, that's normal. But before you'd like, oh my God, did you see that? And now you just like, oh, okay, another one. Like, so like I feel like it kind of just trickles down and everything just keeps having to get harder and harder and harder. Whereas other universities like around the world, you don't have like a Navarro, then like a TVCC like right down the street. Like if you do have a university that has a good like cheerleading team, it's like 1 in a million, I feel like, compared to how condensed it is here.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So it's interesting that you say that about, kids they're pushing themselves harder and harder at a younger and younger age.
Right.
So how do you work through that when you have younger, you might have a senior team and the youngest age is like a 12-year-old.
Right.
And then you have a team that goes all the way up to 18. How do you choreograph a routine, help coach a routine when you've got such a wide age range, but they might actually have the same skills?
Right.
Or in crazies, the 12-year-old might be better.
Right. So like I just try to highlight again what each individual person is like really good at. Like the 12-year-old may be super small and super tiny. So like, okay, let's do something like that's super high flying in the pyramid that we can really use her for. She may not be the best person at like learning counts or like doing choreography, but we can at least have like this highlighted moment in the pyramid because she's so small. She's a 12-year-old. we can just make that her moment. And then everywhere else, she's kind of like floating around, being the lifts, being the transitions, while the older kids are like performing hard and, just doing stuff like that.
So you have done probably numerous hours of choreography.
Yes.
How do you keep it fresh?
How I keep it fresh is I feel like everybody has a different struggle, and I'm there to make your struggle look like a strength. And again, there's just so many things that other people struggle at that this gym may not, but this gym, like, we may have good jumps, but we can stun, and we have horrible jumps, and it's just, there's so many different pieces to like what your strength can be, what your weakness can be. And I just try to find different ways to like accent each single thing. So like, even with jumps, like teams that have bad jumps, I'm over here trying to do like almost a whole dance in front of the jump sequence to take your attention off of it, or some cool stunt in
Nothing
the back.
to see
So
here.
right, just don't look at the jumps. Don't look at the jumps.
We did it.
Right. Or then you have teams that can't stunt, but like, okay, they're good performers, so we're going to get in a prep and just do a bunch of motions. And then maybe you don't realize that we really can't stunt that well.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, that's got to be tough.
Right.
And then it's got to be tough to just go from one gym and then get on a plane and go to another gym and keep it fresh and
Right.
upgrades. And as soon as we get closer and closer to Summit and get closer to Worlds and you're doing upgrade sessions, how do you manage that?
With upgrade sessions, I'm strictly going off the score sheet. So like, no matter how we feel about it, like, oh, I don't think that's that cute. I'm like, it scored this. We're keeping this. It scored this consistently. But if there's something like, oh, but I love this so much, and I'm like, okay, well, we've dropped it X amount of times.
Proof is in the numbers.
Yes. And so like I strictly go off of what we've scored, what the score sheet has been consistently telling us, like what similarities we've had with something that is scored low. Like if it's scoring low more than twice, we need to revisit. Like it can't be two different events that see the same issue and us not address it or try to find a different way to approach it.
That's awesome.
So you kind of have a three-pronged job. You're dealing with the athletes.
Right.
You're dealing with sometimes the parents, the coaches, and then sometimes you're dealing with the program owners.
Right.
How do you manage all of those relationships and make sure that you are honoring each of those relationships? And how do you get over some of those maybe disagreements or headbutting times where your coach thinks one thing and your program owner thinks another, and you're kind of stuck in the middle? How do you manage that?
Whenever I'm like stuck in the middle, I am very good at saying, okay, you may feel this way, you may feel this way. So this is what the score sheet says, like, because we can't argue with that. So I always, like, even though if I'm telling you something that you may not want to hear as a coach, I just pull out the score sheet, because it's like, okay, it's not me. I'm just telling you what the score sheet says. So like, I'm going to tell you, this is what I would do. If you don't want to do it, okay, that's on you. And then if it falls apart or if it fails, then I'll just be like, okay, so now are you ready to like make the change and listen? And usually by then, I mean, I have a pretty good track record, I would say. So when
that helps,
we get into some issues, but people normally would try to listen to me or hear me out, even if it's something that they don't want to hear, or if it's something that I keep saying, because I will say something until I'm blue in the face if I know that I'm right or I feel a certain way about it.
So we have a section of the podcast. It's called Questions That Hit Hard.
Okay.
So all the questions we've asked so far, those are the easy ones.
Okay.
We go rapid fire.
Okay.
Don't think too much about it.
Okay.
Eric and I will go back and forth, and it's just what the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay.
You wanna start?
Okay. All right. You're going to choreograph a gym. Are you flying? You driving?
Flying.
Delta or American?
Delta. What?
Okay, let's go off that. Aisle or middle seat?
Aisle. Never a middle seat. Well, I can't be, no. Like this the whole time, no.
All right, I'll stay in that realm. First class or coach?
First class.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Okay, so it's comp morning, comp day. You're at and we're talking a big competition. Summit, Worlds, Battle Under the Big Top, Cheer Sport. You get up in the morning, how do you game plan which gyms you're going to see? What does that even look like? Or do you just go wander around until you find somebody?
I have my schedule ready to go, and I go in with the plan of I'm going to go down the schedule and I'm just going to make sure I watch every single person. And then I get caught up with a team that's like, oh my God, there's Lewis. Hey. And then I end up talking. I might miss a team, but I go in with the intention to see everybody. And if it's day 2, I will see almost everybody. At Summit, I always can't. But at Worlds, I will see every single team. I'll be standing up on the side of the stage. Dallas as well.
That's really similar to what I do. Remember we were talking?
Yes.
So whenever we go to a comp, there's usually like 3 colors highlighted on the full schedule. Number 1 is obviously our daughter's team and some of the ones from her program. Number 2 is any roster that I'm on for any particular gym going to film.
Right.
And then the third ones are like, those will be really good edits.
Right. And you just
sorry, Zoe, I missed your performance.
Right.
But I got C4 and the video did awesome.
Right. That's exactly how it is.
Okay. Do you have, what's your favorite snack at a competition?
Favorite snack? I don't have a snack. I'm too nervous.
Oh,
I don't have a favorite snack. Yeah, no, I can't.
So do you wait till the end of the day to eat?
Yeah, for the most part. Or until I'm like absolutely starving and can't wait anymore. I can only have water.
Oh, wow. Okay, so comp day again. Are you all decked out? Are you like just taking it chill? What are you wearing?
So that depends. If we're going into day 2 and we're not in first place and we just had practice last night, I'm in sweatpants because I'm probably going to be marking the new routine on the side of the stage as well. If we're all winning, then I'm decked out.
Favorite level to choreo?
Favorite level would probably be level 3.
Oh, I'd love to. I'm going to jump on that. Why?
Because there's so many things, like there's so many different transitions that you can make look more advanced in level 3. Level 2 as well, but especially level 3 because like you can start flipping in stunts.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's not legal. You just kind of play with it until you make it legal. But I just love like the big variety of things like you can do once you get into the level 3 realm.
Black shoes or white shoes?
Black shoes.
Why?
Man.
Because I don't like dirty shoes unless it's like Golden Goose because they kind of already look dirty. If somebody's watching from Golden Goose, sorry, I forgot, what's it called? I think tethered, a tethered look. What is it?
Oh, I know what you're. Yeah, like that more like the weathery. Like
yes. Like it kind of like looks grungy already.
Yeah, grungy.
But definitely a black shoe.
I'm stealing your question for a second because there's a big debate going on.
Okay.
Do white shoes show pointed toes better than black shoes?
So it depends. You have to think about like what floor you're on. So like at Summit, they'll have a black floor sometimes. And if they have a black floor, especially for like level 1s, and this is a really good tip, black shoes with black tights because you hide the legs and you have the feet. And a black background too, you can barely see anything. It's perfect.
So instead of switching to white shoes to point out the pointed toes, you just hide them.
You want to hide them. Because
they're not pointed enough.
It'll be that one judge that'll be like, oh, the girl in the back corner didn't point her toes, point 1.
So you said a word that I want to expand on. I want to know, out of everything, if you had one tip to tell, whether it was an athlete, to a head coach, to a program owner, when you take your pick of who your tip is towards, but give us a tip, like from Lewis, that this is what you need to pay attention to.
My tip would be consistency truly builds confidence. Like it sounds so cliche, but literally like there's no other way to prepare an athlete better than like repetition and repping it the correct way. Like not just doing something over and over because it falls and not giving the correction, like actually give a thorough correction, but like still keep consistently harping on that same correction and focusing on that same point, even after it gets to be quote unquote perfect.
How do you feel about team bonds?
I feel like it's important. Like team bonding is like honestly more than half the battle because like no matter how talented a team is, if we don't really know each other and like, or we don't even like each other or care to know each other, it's like you're really not in it together on stage. Like on stage, like I can't help you. I can scream out the counts and all that stuff, but you're in like autopilot. Like you're having to do it for the person next to you, with the person next to you. And like, if I don't even know your name, I don't care who's standing next to me. Like, I'm just trying to get through this for myself. I'm not screaming for you. Whereas a team that's like bonded, like you can hear them truly yelling out and like supporting each other on the mat. I feel like just a team bond is just so important to a successful program.
Do you think coaches need to be at team bonds?
I do. I feel like coaches need to be at team bonding because honestly, sending a group of athletes, especially at this day and age, into a situation to team bond and they have their phones, no team bonding will happen. And I feel like the coach needs to be there, not just like the team mom, because some gyms will do like the team mom can go handle it. I feel like the coach needs to be there too. Like the coach should be able to like bond with the team and make sure that they are bonding with each other.
We actually talked about this on our Behind the Lens episode right before Christmas. And we have talked about that kind of a hot take of, I think that coaches need to be there, right? Because there's an expectations that the coaches have when they hit this mat.
Right.
how can you expect them to fulfill that expectation if they're not a part of this bonding?
Correct.
They're not just getting together just to, have a pool party and have some
Right.
pizza. They're doing it so that when they hit the mat, they're a cohesive unit.
Right.
So it's really interesting to hear that you agree to that.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's say you're out of cheer.
Oh, you took my question.
This is your last year. What are you doing next year?
So if I was to go out of cheer, I would probably do something with like cybersecurity.
Really?
Yeah. Now, for anybody that knows, I was in the cybersecurity class, but I got kicked out. Part of it was cheer. The other part was I'm just so used to like, I don't know, like going into AccuScore and like being able to argue a point. And I tried to do that with my professor, and
Didn't work out so well.
It didn't work out too well.
Out
So
all the other flaws?
yeah, he definitely did, and he kicked me out. And so, but I would definitely go back into like I would rejoin the class if I ever got out of cheer, and just like commit 100% of my time to it. It was pretty hard to do that, but I was actually like making ground, and I was starting to love it. And then like in the middle of the season, it started like NCA. It was NCA College Nationals. I had NCA All-Star Nationals, cheer sport. And like I was just like on edge in the class. And so like I was just so combative, and he just kicked me out.
He said this class is about ones and zeros, not 5, 6, 7, 8.
Correct. And I just had to go back and do 5, 6, 7, 8 again.
That's awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming on. I know you have a super, super busy schedule. We could sit here and talk all day with you.
Awesome.
So this
Thank
has been
you guys for
really, really
coming.
fun for you to come on and give some encouraging words to the athletes and to the parents, to the program owners and the coaches. So if anybody is in need of choreo, definitely hit up Lewis. He's
Especially in Australia.
in Australia.
Yes.
Is there any other place you want to go? Have you been to every state?
I have not been to
That
every
should've been your
state.
question.
I have not been to every state. I went to Hawaii one time just for because I needed like some flight miles so I could get diamond medallion, but I didn't go there for cheer. So also, if anybody in Hawaii needs choreo, I would be more than happy to go. So can we zoom in on this moment?
Yep.
If you are in Hawaii right now and you hear this, I would love to come do your routine. Slow motion zoom in.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
No
it was
problem.
a blast.
Thank
it was
you
a
guys.
blast.
I
for
enjoyed
sure.
that.
Yes, Lewis, we will be cheering you on all of your routines. I'm sure we'll see you multiple times this year, and
You
we
will.
are just so excited to see the progression of your career, and we will be cheering from the side of the mat.
So before we let you go, where can people find information about you if they want to hire you for choreo?
You can go ahead and follow me on @EyesOnYouChoreo on Instagram. Or if you're following me on Facebook, which a lot of you probably are, my name is Lewis McClendon on Facebook. You can add me there. And then if anybody else, if you don't have any of those two social media accounts, you can go ahead and email me at eyesonyouchoreo@gmail.com.
Awesome. Well, today this has been an amazing episode, Erica.
has.
Lewis from Eyes on You Choreo. We're here at Cheer Extreme in Raleigh. It's just an amazing pair that we got a chance to be able to sync up with Lewis. So thank you so much to everybody watching. Of course, go over and follow HITZZN Media at HITZZN Media on Instagram. And of course, watch the podcast of HITSZN on both Spotify and YouTube. And we'll see you on the mat.